Joseph Shield Nicholson was an English economist, born in 1850 in Rowby, Lincolnshire, the only son of independent minister Reverend Thomas Nicholson of Banbury and his wife Mary Ann Grant. Educated at the Lewisham School in London, he went on to study logic and metaphysics at King's College London. He later studied at the University of Edinburgh from 1872, but a year later he moved on to study moral sciences at Trinity College, Cambridge. He also studied law at Heidelberg, before he became a professor of political economy and mercantile law at Edinburgh in 1880. In 1884, he became a Fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. In 1885, he married Jane Walmsley Hodgson, the pair having 3 children. He died in Edinburgh in 1927. Nicholson was a prolific author, writing chiefly on matters of economy. His works and essays include The Effects of Machinery on Wages, Strikes and Social Problems, and History of the English Corn Laws. From 1888 to 1890, he published 3 fantasies anonymously, but they were apparently not successful. This may be the reason why Nicholson would not write any more fiction until 1913, when he compiled prose extracts from the works of the poet Ariosto in Tales from Ariosto. Today we shall focus on his Thoth, a romance. The novel is curious, because it is a lost race story set in the times of ancient Greece, with a still older, advanced people encountered by a Miletan maiden in Athens. The story begins in Athens, where a horrible plague had broken out around the same time a group of very odd merchants had come to the city. Scores die a horrible death, yet the merchants, supposedly hailing from Egypt, yet not understanding the value of goods they buy or sell, don't seem in any hurry to leave. Before the plague broke out, they tried to buy female slaves, but didn't buy any, since they were not pleased with their intellectual abilities. They soon convinced some 30 fair maidens from Athens to come with them to escape the plague, but the fairest maiden in Athens, Daphne, confronts them, not believing their fanciful stories. Their leader, named Thoth, manages to convince her to come with them, being a finer and less sneering man than his companions. The maidens, after being drugged, board a strange vessel that is not powered by oars and has no masts. But along the way, all the maidens die except Daphne. Awakening in a strange city in the middle of the desert, Daphne finds herself the guest of Thoth. She discovers in the city, full of scientific wonders, a race of benign pygmies who serve her, as well as good-natured giants, twice the size of full-grown men. However, she sees little of the ruling class, and eventually Thoth brings her to a museum dedicated to works of art meant to humiliate and degrade women, fashioned with all manner of sneering contempt. After swooning from sheer anger, Daphne awakes again, and once she can move, is taken to a prison where the women of the ruling class are kept. Here, they are either intentionally maimed or mentally broken and forced, with horrible punishments, to do the most useless, taxing, menial tasks, such as counting grains of sand or untying tied knots. The truth is, the entire ruling class had been bred for the last several hundred years to hate women and to torture and punish them as horribly as possible. Thoth, however, intends to marry Daphne to save the race, but is without emotion, being devoted solely to logic. After a series of conflicting emotions, Daphne is faced with a choice: to become his wife and queen of an empty world after his ancestor and king awakes from suspended animation and slaughters all of humanity, or try to persuade Thoth to choose life and love over slaughter and genocide. The story is well paced, and while Thoth and Daphne are the only characters properly introduced and developed, Thoth's personality, oscillating between his growing love of Daphne and his non-realization that Daphne could find issue with being asked to publicly support the expedition of wiping out humanity, makes for an interesting character. The novel is fast-paced and readable, and these last discoveries, along with the horror of the city, make for a very engaging, potentially grim read, which I fully recommend.